Hi, I'm Zaakirah, and I am the host of the See Life Different podcast. This podcast is perfect for you if you are a Black, indigenous, woman of color, ready to step outside of your comfort zone. This podcast will inspire you, empower you, and educate you on how to see life differently, whether it's in your business or in your personal life. I am a cancer survivor, brand cultivating strategist, author, and world traveler. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to another episode of the See Life Different podcast. This is Zaakirah, and July is or was Disability Pride Month, depending on when you were listening. And I had the honor of recording my first in real life panel with Real Talk by Tri-City Collective in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So the panel itself was called Disabled and Thriving. And so you're about to hear just the 30 or so minute version of that conversation. I left in a question that I asked as the moderator and included my answers only to some of the questions, just to give you an insight to my perspective and my story, especially if this is a reintroduction or a first-time introduction to who I am in my story. But the panel itself had Dr. Anthony Cherry and Alana and Mbanza of Empower MS, and you can listen to or watch the full hour and a half long conversation by searching Disabled and Thriving Real Talk by Tri-City Collective on YouTube. And in the conversation, we talked about navigating ableism and joy and productivity and claiming our place in the workspace and the entrepreneur world, especially as Black and indigenous disabled creators. So a huge thank you again to Tri-City Collective for the opportunity to not only moderate it, but curate the idea. And a huge thank you to Pursuit Film for having the opportunity to record it live in Tulsa. And it was especially a huge thank you to the partners, Oklahoma Humanities, for being a partnership so that we can have this amazing audio excerpt. So if the episode resonated with you, please be sure to share it. Please be sure to subscribe for more episodes coming soon. And please be sure to leave a review so that more people can listen to this podcast episode. Until next time, stay proud, stay present, keep seeing life through your own powerful lens. I am Zaakirah Nayyar Muhammad, and I have eye cancer in my right eye. So that means I cannot see you in my right eye. It is a prosthetic eye. And as a result of the cancer, I'm also hard of hearing. So I have a hearing aid that is currently malfunctioning at the moment. So I am an African-American woman, and for those who are blind and low vision, I am wearing a head wrap with polka dot glasses, black glasses, white shirt, and a polka dot flowy skirt. So today's conversation is going to center around the intersectionality of disability, identity, the importance of creating a more inclusive and equitable workforce. And because July is Disability Pride Month, Disability Pride Month is also acknowledging the 35th anniversary of the American Disability Act. And it affects disabilities. There's 1 in 4 people in the U.S. that has a disability. And so we're having a conversation today, and any questions you do have, be sure to hold them to the end, but we definitely want you to ask questions. So, by the way, we're having a conversation and we're not medical doctors. So just know that those medical questions are not going to be answered by us. You can go to Google, go to WebMD, go to ChatGPT for those questions. Okay. So to get started, I want each of you to tell us about your diagnosis. So I'm going to interject occasionally as we're having a group conversation, and I'll share that my cancer is called Retinoblastoma. It's predominantly caught in children under the age of 13. So my diagnosis was officially when I was 6 months old at the 6-month-old checkup. My mom had taken a picture of me 3 months earlier, and she saw a white glow instead of a red glow that you normally see back in the day of that flash. And so she took it to more than one doctor, because the first doctor was like, don't worry about it, you're just nervous. And she was like, no, I need a second opinion. And because she was adamant about the second opinion, she was able to take it to a doctor that recognized retinoblastoma and said that I needed to have surgery right away. So that's why I have surgery in my right eye. And since I was not even 1 year old, I've been wearing a prosthetic eye in my right eye. And more of those stories are shared in the book. My mom and I wrote it together. She was writing journals for the first 18 years of my life and kind of put that together as like a mother-daughter conversation. So that's how I ended up building my brand, as seeing life from a different lens, or seeing life through a different lens, which is the name of the book. So going on to the next question, all of you now have lived life and you're entrepreneurs, you're working the 9 to 5, you're side hustling. But how did your diagnosis then start to change the way you think about your identity and the way that you utilize that as you approach your work? I've loved everything that you both mentioned, and it led me to a question that I just thought of. So in between you working and building your apps, you have the doctor appointments. So let's talk about what those doctor appointments are like. Are you still being gaslit medically? And mental health is very important as well as you're going through all of this. So what are some of the tools that you are using, or the community, the types of community you're leaning on when you're going through these mental health challenges, dealing with all of this? And then I wanted to interject to add that because my story is a bit different, that I was too young to advocate for myself before I even knew what the word advocacy was. I'm thankful for my mom and my dad who were able to do it. Back in the 90s. It wasn't necessarily Facebook groups because the internet was just getting started, but a lot of the time my mom would hang out at the hospital. The hospital was the first Facebook group. The other parents that are going through the same thing, the other parents that don't know what to do, and so the parents that have been through it already are talking to each other. So before the Facebook groups, the hospitals still can be your source of community. And I wanted to mention a therapy tool that I have used in the past called Open Path Collective. So there's a few resources out there for those who are just getting started or want to help other people. And so what are some of the pivotal moments that help you to find the strength to face the challenges? And let's see, I could answer that question too. So it became pivotal for me. We briefly talked about it, of being able to advocate for yourself. So my story started pretty much in middle school. That's the age where puberty is hitting everyone and you want to bully because you can. So a lot of time the bullying that happened to me was, if you remember the joke of 4 eyes, because I wear glasses, but instead I would joke back with them and say I'm actually 3 eyes because I can't see you in 1 eye. So being able to reflect in a positive, light humor way of, just because that I am different from you, this is actually my superpower, and what are you going to do about it in that way? So it happened for me in middle school, where I could confidently say I am a survivor of this childhood eye cancer survivor. So for those who may be newly diagnosed, or they have an advocate for them, like a parent or a guardian, what are your tips for those who need to get over the hub of telling their story for the first time? So there were a lot of people that were in my corner when it came to just navigating throughout school. I had what they call an individualized education plan, or IEP, which means that I could have a speech therapist so that I can confidently speak to you today. And I also had guidance counselors that were there to make sure that I can be the one to sit in front, so that I can both see and hear and adapt to everything of what the teachers are talking about. And then I had to carry that skill set on, even when I entered the entrepreneurship and workspace era, to once I got past HR, because I think the one thing that most people don't talk about is you don't want to tell HR about your disability. So once I knew I got the job and I signed all the onboarding documents, then I said, hi, I am hard of hearing, I'm visually impaired, I need this, I need that, I need the other. Then they can't really say anything about it. They're like, okay, we'll see what we can do. But have you had that experience of you make it past the job or get into that first networking event, making it past that first pitch, and then you share your disability? So we are talking about this in the month of July, which I did mention is the 35th anniversary of the American Disabilities Act. But we are also in this time frame where this bill called the Big Beautiful Bill is about to change everybody's lives. And a lot of it does have to do with the funding that people can get to be able to easily have these resources at HR, at the school, at the job, even for entrepreneurship. So at this time, I know there's more research that needs to be done as far as how it's going to continuously affect. But the biggest thing is a lot of those who are disabled depend heavily on Medicaid and Medicare for the things that they need and for the doctor appointment that they need to go to for the regular checkup. So how are you feeling about all of this? So for Disability Pride Month, there is a flag that was created by a graphic designer. And in that flag, you'll see it when you Google it basically, but it has about 5 different colors. And so the colors are different for different kinds of disability. One of them, the red, it represents physical disability. The gold represents neurodiversity. So think of autism, and invisible disabilities is white, invisible or undiagnosed. Blue represents psychiatric disabilities and mental illness. And green represents sensory disabilities, such as blindness, such as deafness. And so my question for you all is, what have you learned about others with other types of disabilities? My experience over the past maybe 2 decades, I've been blessed to be around others that are visually impaired. And then I've also been blessed to be around others who also have a physical disability that also affect their vision. And so it also does go back to that communication, that empathy, because I can walk, I can see just fine in the daylight, but there are a lot of people who cannot. So I remember there's 2 instances where there are some who are completely blind, and they depend heavily on the white cane that has a red bottom at the top and a little knob that lets them know whether they're bumping into something or not. Now, there's such thing as programs that are also getting funded by the government called vocational rehab programs. And this really helped them to navigate, cross streets, get into Uber, things of that sort. But every chance that I get, because I had this opportunity, one, to be a summer camp counselor with others who are visually impaired or completely blind, is to ask them if they need help. And nowadays, a lot of them are resistant because they're not used to it. But I remember getting that experience of asking them if they need help. And then I am the one who is what's called their sighted guide. That means grabbing onto they will grab onto your right arm and walk with you. And anyone who would automatically make assumptions like, oh, is that your boo? No, I'm helping them to walk across the street. It's things like that of making sure that people don't automatically assume and make assumptions, but also being able to advocate, but also being able to be empathetic. So that we got a long way to go for that, but there's resources and places and people out there that do need the help, and maybe hesitant at first because this world does not easily help people.
Seeing life from a different lens isn't just a title, it's my truth. I remember the first day I stepped outside wearing just my prosthetic eye. No glasses, no protective cover, just me. And for the first time in a long time, I felt confident. Not invisible, not broken, just beautiful and whole. That's the energy behind Adhesive's eye patches. They're stylish, they're breathable, they're reusable. And they're not made to hide, but to help. If you're wearing an eye patch after eye surgery or after your eye appointment, or you just want to embrace being different, think Lisa Left Eye, Popeye, or even Disney's newest character, Elio. Confidence isn't just about blending in, it's about showing up fully. And Adhesive meets you where you are and walks with you forward. To learn more and to get yours today, visit bit.ly/adhesive Zaakirah. That's EYEHESIVEZAAKIRAH.
So we're getting ready to open up for questions, and before we do that, so you can find me online at Zaakirah Nayyar. Zaakirah is Arabic for the hereafter, the afterlife. Nayyar is my middle name. It's Arabic for bright light. What I didn't realize until I did a speaking engagement like in the middle of the pandemic, someone asked me a question and said, you realize that your middle name literally projected your life? And I'm like, I had no idea, but now we're rolling with it. So Seeing Life Through a Different Lens is the book. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it on my website. You can find it on Audible. I am also understanding that we need some in real life communities, and I'm actually having people make a little exodus if they want to, go to the continent of Africa if they want to. I've been traveling with a disability and what it's like traveling with a mother who has a physical disability. That's a conversation for a whole nother day. But you can also learn all about that at zaakirahnayyar.com, ZAAKIRAHNAYYAR.com. So if you have questions, be sure to hold the microphone so we can see your lips. Uber and Lyft nowadays are doing good about asking you what kind of disability you have. So that can make sure that they put you in the right vehicle, because definitely during the pandemic, and when I was trying to travel with my parents who have physical disabilities, we had to keep rebooking vehicle because they were too small. And we asked for the biggest car, but that wasn't the one. So thank goodness apps are getting better about asking you ahead of time what kind of help do you need. Next is the airlines. Now the airlines are doing a lot better about putting you to go before the first class, the people in first class. So airlines are now doing better, but if it doesn't already have a box in the form, you have to tell people. Usually you have to make sure that you go to the check-in line rather than you checking in online, because if they don't see you and let you have that conversation to tell them, it can be difficult. For the most part, I used to just let it slide, but then I'll be more tired by the end of my travel than I would blame it on I don't want to travel because of this, because of that. I'm going to struggle with this, I'm going to struggle with that. But the good thing now is if you now say, I cannot see, so I need to be able to navigate to the front, or I cannot hear and I need someone to take me to the plane, or we can walk but we can't walk very far, so if the terminal is in the other side of cyberspace, please give us a wheelchair. So it's just now airline and train and public transportation travel is easier because there's now questions that ask. But for a very long time I had to get the confidence to advocate for myself before I could even advocate for my parents who had physical disabilities. So
yeah.
I wanted to mention a book that was recently published by a disability advocate by the name of Tiffany Yu, Tiffany, and the last name is YU. The name of the book is Anti-Ableist Manifesto. But in that book, she had excerpts from a lot of other disability advocates with all kinds of disabilities, and they have scripts in there. They have thoughtful journal style questions, and they have resources in that book as well. So it's available on Amazon, on Tiffany Yu's website, as well as an audiobook for if you want to listen as well too.
I have a couple questions from our YouTube stream to piggyback on what we've been discussing. What advice would you give someone with a disability, or as an ally of somebody with a disability that's trying to advocate for accommodations, but they're worried about being too difficult, or they're worried about bringing more attention to themselves? Is there, I know we've already talked about books and specific language recommendations, but just have to break out of your shell, you can't be quiet anymore. What would you say the best piece of advice is for that?
I think I'll touch on the accommodation part and piggyback over, especially to the travel aspect. One thing that I've also needed to do is make sure that if it's going to be an Airbnb, it's going to be on the ground floor. And if it can't be on the ground floor, it has a ramp or a working elevator. Some hotels in other countries don't have that yet. And so that's a lot of times of hoping we can call ahead, because nowadays everyone wants to use AI and we can't even get the customer service to make sure, is this going to fulfill our needs? So a lot of it still goes back over to asking those questions. Ask the person with the disability, what do you need? But also making sure that the places that accommodate, can you actually accommodate? You're not just listing it and saying it, but do you actually accommodate? Do you have the picture to prove it? So I can say that in the terms of accommodating, like making sure that it is actually going to be accommodating.
I have a couple more. How can organizations go beyond ADA compliance to build truly accessible and empowering work environments, but beyond just posting posters and such? Do you think that focus groups are a good place to start? Or I think they might be referring more to like the little things, not just the broad sweeping posting posters and making sure there's accessible walkways and such, but something that maybe would be very accommodating or helpful that isn't often thought of.
I still also think there's still a lot of conferences that are still going on, even if they're virtual, that are both for disability and for allies. There's one organization, Johnson has a conference that they organize where it's for both those who are disabled and those who are in the medical field, who are policymakers and who can make the decision. So it is a little bit more of go back to those Facebook groups, be a listener in the Facebook groups as well as attend the conferences and focus groups. I'm always wary about them because it's like, what are you actually going to do with the information? That's just me. But if there are conferences that and communities that come together with people who are decision makers, both on the ally side and the disability side, that tends to be the most effective.
The last question I have here is for each of you, being in different fields, but can you speak to how your identity intersects with your disability in the workplace and in your social life, and how that affects your experience?
My background is in photography, and how my cancer was detected was through a photograph. So that already just intersects with my career as a whole. But also the moment I got more confident with building my own brand, storytelling, things of that sort, I have also created the elevator pitch that in short will let people know. Similarly, I'm a photographer, but I cannot see in my right eye. Normally it's a conversation starter as a whole. Oh my gosh, what happened? But normally that's how you can start telling the story, but not in a way of still being traumatized by it, still feeling victimized by it. So for me, I'm able to still intertwine it in the ways of it's how I see you, it's how I see life differently, it's how I'm seeing this event that I'm attending differently, it's how I'm watching this movie differently. So I am able to make it a elevator pitch that is also a conversation starter because of how my diagnosis came about.
Thank you so much.
I am Zaakirah Nayyar Muhammad. I am a childhood eye cancer survivor and a disability advocate, while empowering others to use storytelling and media to amplify marginalized voices. I have a book that is called Seeing Life Through a Different Lens. I have a TED Talk called Seeing Life from a Different Lens. I have a podcast called See Life Different, which is all about empowering disability justice, racial equity, and healing through creativity. And I also am working on telling the stories of other retinoblastoma survivors, which is the name of my childhood eye cancer. I want to use that time to thank the panelists for having this amazing conversation, for Real Talk, and for Tri-City Collective, Pursue Films, and Oklahoma Humanities for making this possible. And without your dedication, this platform for connecting and understanding would not be possible. And thank you to our audiences for your time and your question, and for being here, and for choosing to watch it and watch the replay. And your presence is definitely a step toward brighter future and more equitable and inclusive community. Okay. Until then, stay safe, stay connected, stay healthy, and continue to be an advocate and ally.